I'm back. Married at First Sight UK, episode 2. In this episode, we see 2 more of our couples get married. First of all, we have Thomas and Adrian, our first gay couple. And then secondly, we have George and April. Let's talk a little bit about Thomas. He's 31 and he works in mental health. The reason for him going into care work was because he nursed his grandmother before her passing, and that sort of steered his career. He also mentions about not being good enough in relationships, even though he mentions about being engaged twice. But my question is, why get engaged? I'm sure you would have had that feeling before getting engaged, that you weren't good enough or you didn't feel good enough. But then you did it twice. It makes no sense to me. Moving on. He also talked about being camp and fabulous. And he wasn't kidding. He actually called himself superficial. For he likes having the regular spray tans. He's also had his teeth done, his eyebrows. He's had full Botox, his ears pinned back twice, his chin filled and his cheeks filled. And he would like to do more. Yeah, you heard me. He wants to do more. Oh, I can't keep up with all these aesthetics that people do to themselves these days. Ugh, dear. Each to their own. At the end of the day, he's looking for someone that will accept him for who he is. Moving on to Adrian. He's 37 and a digital designer. His mother lives in Turkey, if I remember him saying. So he has no immediate family here. He mentions that he has dated a lot, but still hasn't found that someone. The so-called relationships he's been in have been short-lived, have sizzled out. People have cheated on him, and it hasn't gone anywhere. So he's really looking for somebody long-term. He talks about wanting somebody who's a team player, someone that can make him laugh. And let's not forget the husband and the 2.4 kids. Yeah. And that's just about it. He's a very simple guy. And I should have mentioned with Thomas, he's also looking for somebody with a heteronormative life. Those were his words. Don't know what that means. I'm presuming normal life. He wants the husband, the 2.4 kids, the picket fence, and they both seem to want the same in regards to that. Let's hope the matchmakers have got this right, because they're total opposites in some respect, but their foundations do match. And they do say opposites attract. So we're just going to have to wait and see. Moving on to our next couple, we have April and George. April is 32 and is a wedding dress designer. She was also crowned Miss Great Britain 2020. She may come across confident, but she's the least confident person she knows. It all started with her mother leaving her at 8 years old, and it was the father and the grandmother that raised her. And then she lost her grandmother later on in life. And then when it comes to dating, she's done a lot of the dating online, and she gets to about the 4th date and it never goes any further than that. And she's got to the point where she stops herself from getting hurt by leaving them first. Yeah, that's what she said. Now, what she's looking for is somebody tall, funny, family orientated, has a good job, and good looking, but not too good looking, because she doesn't want anybody to steal him away from her. And I get that. That to me makes a lot of sense. When someone's too good looking, there's always competition. Moving on to George. He's 40 and is a financial advisor. He's divorced. Has been divorced for 6 years. No, sorry, he's been divorced for 4 years. He was married for 12 years and has 4 kids. Youngest 10, oldest 20. He talks about the dating scene and how he's been ghosted quite a lot because of his situation in regards to having kids. Yeah, hasn't been fun, let's put it that way. He describes himself as humorous, loving, reliable, a simple guy. And he's looking for his bride to accept him as he is. But also, the cherry on the top is somebody that's ambitious. Because he sees somebody that's ambitious as having drive. Yeah. When he was talking, I noticed with him, he reminds me a little bit of Bob from last season. But not Bob as in the silly Bob. We're talking more on the emotional tip. I can see him being a Bob of this season. And there's nothing wrong with being emotional. Nothing wrong at all. Men should cry. Fast forward to the wedding day. Starting with Thomas and Adrian. We saw Thomas faffing around, getting ready. Very anxious, on edge, getting worked up, trying to get ready, talking about, I hope he's from Liverpool, because if he's not from Liverpool, I'm not moving. Yeah, he was on that one. And on top of that, wanting his makeup done this way, done that way, wants the bronzer, wants his eyebrows this way, that way, wants this lip gloss, this lipstick. Yeah. And it went on, just like a woman. And then last of all, he's complaining about his mouth being dry as a bone. Where's the Prosecco? And of course there isn't any. It's all done. Prosecco, done. Moving on to Adrian. Now Adrian's day seems to be going very calmly. He's up early and he's got his best friend Katie with him. These two are sitting down, relaxing, having a chit chat about who he's going to be paired up with. His friend Katie's a little anxious because she's the type of person, from what I gather here, is going to be the one to grill him about his intentions. That's how it comes across to me. It looks like Adrian listens to every little word that she says, and he doesn't seem to say much. What she says goes. This is not going to be pretty. I can see it coming. This is not going to be pretty. And as she said, her facial expressions say a lot. And she's not going to be able to hold back. Those were her words. This is going to be interesting. Fast forward. Both guys are ready for the day. In their suits. Looking handsome. Adrian arrives at the venue. Very nervous. He comes across that way. A very nervous guy. He doesn't say hello when he walks in though. It was Thomas's mother that turned around and said hello to him, which put him at ease. Yeah, that's what I noticed. Now with Thomas, he's the bride in this case. And he was very much a diva in his arrival. Did you see the horse and carriage? The white horse and carriage. This guy pulled out all the stops for his day. This is his day, as he said. When arriving at the venue, Thomas was led down the aisle by his father. The first thing he said when he saw Adrian was, I don't do blondes. Of course, he didn't say that to his face. He said it to the camera. And other things he said were, he looks like Claire Balding. He's not my type. His hairstyle is not how I would do it. And his suit, he virtually said, was boring. Talk about negative. Were there any positives? I don't recall. Tell a lie, tell a lie. When he found out where he was from, that he was from somewhere like Hyson in Liverpool, he was over the moon that he didn't have to move. Oh yes, that broke the ice there. And then from there on, he could see that this guy was quite a gentle guy. And he thought, you know what? I need to give this a go. So we saw Thomas read his vows first, and he was funny, as always. And then it came to Adrian. Now, he was very nervous. Very nervous. So Thomas took his hand and tried to hold him steady. But then he pulled back to say, can I have my hand back, please? Because I need to hold this paper with both hands because my hands are shaking. That's virtually what he said. Yeah. So he said his vows eventually, and they were nice. Then the celebrant said, you may kiss your husband. So both of them went in for a kiss. No problem whatsoever. They went in twice, to be honest. Yes, they did. Yes, they did. So that was a bit of a turnaround for someone that Thomas wasn't initially feeling. That definitely was a turnaround. The next scene we saw was Thomas's mother talking into the camera. And she turned around and said, this is not the type of guy that Thomas would normally go for. But Thomas has never been good in picking right. Something like that, she said. So maybe this is good for him. Again, we're going to have to wait and see. And then we saw, God, what's his name? Adrian's friend, Katie. I've got to get all these names. There's too many names. So Adrian's friend, Katie, speak into the camera. And she said, Thomas is a little too flamboyant for the type of guy Adrian would normally go for. She expected him to be with somebody more calmer and more sophisticated. Those were her words. Sophisticated. Oh, this doesn't look good. Where she's concerned, it doesn't look good. In regards to Katie, when watching her on TV last night, I said to myself, is it me or is it the TV? But now looking at the picture here of her makeup, the blusher. What's going on here? She looks a bit like Aunt Sally. She just plonked it on. No. Adrian, of all people, I thought would have picked up on this. He should have corrected you in regards to your makeup. This isn't it. When we saw Thomas being interviewed outside after the ceremony, he made a comment about if we were in a magazine, as in him and Adrian, and the topic was hot or not, he would be hot and Adrian would be not. That's what he said. That's what he said. And then behind that, he said, but beggars can't be choosers. Yeah, that's right. Beggars can't be choosers. Fast forward to the wedding reception. Well, you saw the top table with Adrian and Thomas's mum sitting by his side and Adrian's friend Katie on his side. Now, it didn't take long before all the questions were fired at Thomas. Katie didn't hold back. I think that scene there went on for at least, it must have been a good 5 minutes. Question after question after question. It felt like an interview. And as Thomas said to the camera, I'm not married to her. Adrian should be asking me these questions. Why is she involved? She's insignificant. That's virtually what he was saying. You also saw Thomas's mum jump in at one point and say, "Do you work for Channel 4? Yes? Mummy said, "Do you work for Channel 4? With her saying that, you saw Katie take a pause. But that didn't last long, because she started all over again, asking all the questions under the sun. Then you saw Thomas speak to the camera again, and he was saying, "Why is she grilling me? The bitch needs to be quiet." That's what he said. You could see he was getting agitated now. He's saying to himself, "Adrian, why aren't you speaking to me? It's you and me that are married. Why is she behaving like she's my wife?" That's virtually what he was getting at. Adrian was so quiet, trying not to be seen, whilst these two were going at loggerheads with each other across the table. He didn't say a word. He was as quiet as a mouse. Just by his non-actions, I can tell he's not one for confrontation. Just by watching that. As the day wore on, we saw Thomas's temperature start to fray. Yeah, he's had enough. You saw him have a little go at, what's her name again? Katie. Yes, Katie. Because she's still going with the 20 questions. And he's just had enough. He says, "I can't get a word in edgeway with my husband. I'm trying to get to know him, but you keep asking me questions. This is between me and Adrian. Me and my husband." That's virtually what he was trying to say. Keep your beak out. And because of because of Thomas's voice being raised, you could see the rest of the reception, people in the reception, were focused on them now. They're whispering under their breath, thinking, "Oh, what's going on over there? Oh, they look like they're having a Barney." Yeah. All attention, all eyes were now on them. It was at that point that you could see Adrian now was trying to keep the peace. Yeah, all of a sudden he's got a little voice saying to his friend Katie, "Yeah, drop it. No, let's calm down." Yeah, something along those lines anyway. But then you see them go off somewhere, and it's now Thomas with his girlfriends on the top table, and they were trying to find out what was going on and trying to calm him down. Yeah. The same goes for Adrian and his friend Katie. She turned around and said she doesn't want him to go on this honeymoon. And if she could do it, it would be over her dead body. That's virtually what she was trying to say. Coming back to Thomas, once his friends had calmed him down, they asked the question, "So what do you think of Adrian?" And he turned around and said, "I like him. He's got a heart of gold. He's got a kind heart. But I can't get a word in edgeways to get to know him. Because too many people asking effing questions." That's what he said. And that was the end of that conversation. These guys eventually managed to get time to themselves to talk through the day. Thomas aired his views. Adrian aired his views. Now we're good as gold. They hugged it out in the end. And then you saw them go off to their hotel. Come through the doors. Again, we got the love heart petals on the bed. And both of them were saying, "I'm not sleeping on the couch." Yeah. So they were in agreement with that. And that's where it ended with those two. So we're going to have to wait and see what happens next. So moving on to April and George. So we saw these two getting ready for their day, their special day. First of all, we saw April looking very nervous, getting hair and makeup done. And then she's also got her, not bridesmaid, bridesman. Yeah, Jose. This guy, I'm presuming, is her best friend. He seems to know her inside out. He's trying to calm her down. She's getting nervous, jittery. But she eventually gets dressed and ready. And then we see a moment with her and her dad and him wishing her well and saying, if it doesn't turn out, I'm always here for you. Yeah. So they had their little moment. Then we saw George looking relaxed, but at the same time nervous. Dressed in his suit, looking very dapper. And then we saw his mum enter the room. And he started talking to his mum. And the subject of his kids came up in the conversation, where he was saying, I hope my bride is going to be accepting of me having children. And then he got a little emotional and Mummy gave him a little hug, tried to, again, reassure him it's all going to be okay. At that moment, he reminded me of Bob. Yes, he did. He soon dried his tears and then he was ready to go. The next scene we saw was him walking down the aisle of this outdoor venue of where they were going to get wed today. He looked very nervous. I didn't see him say hello to anybody. And it took April's bridesman, I've got to get this right, her bridesman, Jose, to say hello to him. And then it sort of broke the ice because he came over to him and told him that he looked fab. Yeah, so that broke the ice there. We also saw a moment where April's friends were chatting amongst themselves, saying that he looks lovely. They feel at ease now because he looks like he's her type. So that was a good sign. And finally, we saw the bride arrive, being walked down the aisle by her father. Upon turning around, George was very much grinning from ear to ear to see his bride. He couldn't believe his luck. Once April arrived at the altar, these two were breaking the ice with a little chatting. Well, she was more the chatty one, with a nervous laugh and conversation, and he was just going along with it. But these two had an instant attraction to each other, because she definitely said he's her type. And he said she had delicious eyes. He didn't say that to her, though. That was to the camera. And said that the matchmakers had done well. We then saw them exchange their vows and that they were now married and had permission to seal it with a kiss. But she pointed to her cheek and he kissed her on the cheek. The next scene we saw was them having their photographs taken. And you could see them having a conversation whilst this is happening. He was asking where she lived and vice versa. And then the question came up in regards to whether she had kids. And she looked very nervous to answer that question because she's thinking, where's this going? She did, however, answer the question by saying she's not too sure she wants children. And then he was hesitant because she now asked him the question, does he have kids? And he looked very nervous in regards to answering that question, but eventually he did. And he said he had 4. She looked very wide-eyed, like a deer in headlights, thinking, what the hell? She's not too sure she wants to be a stepmom to 4 kids, 10, 11, 15 and 20. Yeah, this is a big decision here. Her mind is going like the clappers now. She's thinking, how do I digest this information? This is all too much. Eventually, we saw them sitting back in the reception hall and she's still asking questions about his kids. He says 2 of his kids, the 2 older kids live with him, and I'm presuming the 2 younger ones live with the mother. And his relationship with his ex-wife is amicable. Yeah. And then you saw her go off and converse with one of her girlfriends saying to her, he's got 4 kids. He's got 4 kids. Her friend was in a little bit of a shock, but at the same time she said, give him a chance. He looks like a nice guy. Give him a chance. So with her friend saying this, it looks like she's going to take this all on board and give him a chance. The next scene we saw was a pep talk between Jose and George. And this took place outside. Jose was saying to George about April's past, about she's been hurt in the past. She doesn't have strong self-esteem. She always doubts herself, whether she's good enough, etc., etc. You then see George ask the question, so what's caused this? Then Jose goes into detail about a past relationship she's had where she was on a high with the relationship. As the relationship went on, she got smaller and smaller and smaller. That sounds a little coercive in my head, but I don't know. I wasn't in that relationship. But what Jose was really trying to say is that I see you are a good man. I want you to treat her well. That's really what he was trying to say. She's been through enough. And with that being said, they went back into the venue. The next scene we saw was George giving a speech to his guests and to his wife. And he started with a line of, as the father of girls, something like that he said. And then the speech carried on from that point. So everyone knew at that point that he had kids. He wasn't going to deny anything. You saw at the end of the speech, April get a little tearful. And I'm thinking whether the tears were about the speech or whether they're about what the task she's going to have to take on as a stepmom. I think it might have been a mixture of both, to be honest. Yeah, so she was a little tearful. We then saw the two of them go outside of an evening and he wrapped her in a nice blanket and they were having a nice conversation. And she was talking about how the kids thing was a shock to her. But the more she's thought about it, and with him having 3 girls, and she can see how considerate and nice he is, she's looking at him very differently because no one's treated her the way he has today. And with him having girls, he would know how to relate to a female and be tender in the same way with her. That's really what she was saying. We then saw them round the evening off with a dance or two, and then it was off to the hotel. So the night ended on a high note with these two getting to know each other back at the hotel. You saw swans on the bed, petals and champagne, and they virtually cheered each other on by clinking glasses and telling the cameraman to go. So we're just going to have to wait and see what happens further down the line with these two on the honeymoon. So this is where I'm going to leave it. If you like what you heard, please like, comment and subscribe. Till next time.